Hey everyone, I'm Glenn Pierce. I'm the Behavior and Training Manager at National Mill Dog Rescue, and this is Nina. She's a very special little girl that we found just a few days ago living under a trailer. She's only 2 years old, and she already has an adult son named Jacob, who's also here, and they're in a much better place than they were just a few days ago, and well, they'll be in a better place even more so once they go to their forever homes, which we know is going to be soon because she's just a sweet little girl. This is going to be the first in probably a series of training videos that we're going to put up here so that, well, I know everybody has a lot of extra time on their hands right now. And one thing that you can do that's really useful with that time is to do some training with your dog. It's something you can do indoors, which is really nice. And it's not only a great way to teach behavior, but it's also really good enrichment for your dog. That means we're getting the dog to use his or her brain. Really, really important part of keeping any animal happy and healthy. And we want to make sure that they use their brains. And training is definitely a way to do that, obviously. And last but not least, it's a great way to just spend time and build your relationship with your dog, which is always super, super important. We're going to teach little Nina here how to spin. We're at least going to get started. We'll probably do the first few steps of the training plan in this video, and then next week we'll post the next steps. And if as you go along you'd like to share with us how you're doing, please post it here so we can see how you and your dog are doing as well. And then when we have the finished product after next week's video, then I'm looking forward to seeing lots and lots of people posting videos of you and your dogs doing the spin. It's going to be really fun. So, are you ready? We're going to use a luring training plan today. That means I'm going to start with a food lure. I have some cheese here, and I'm going to lure her with the food to get the first couple steps done. And then we're going to change that to a hand signal only. My hand is going to direct her what to do without the food in it. And then the very last couple steps is where we add the verbal cue. We're not going to tell her to spin, use the word, until the last couple steps, which is always the best way to train a behavior. Now, I'm going to post a training plan here, a written training plan, that you can follow along with if you'd like. And I always encourage everyone to follow along with a written training plan, because that way you know exactly where you are in your training plan and the steps, the numbered steps. And if you stop, then wait for another session, go on to another session, then you'll know exactly where you are, and you don't have to try to remember. You can just mark it down in your training plan and say, I was on step 5 when in the last session that we did. Now each of these food lure, hand signal, and verbal cue are cues for the dog. A cue is a signal that we give the dog to get them to do something for us. And it's really important to give every cue, whether it's a food lure, a hand signal, or a verbal cue, to give the cue once and only once. Don't repeat it, because if you repeat your cues, then the dog's going to basically learn to ignore you, and that's the last thing we want, right? So if you don't get the behavior you want the first time for your cues, and sometimes it takes some practice to give the cue properly too, so please, please, please understand that training is a messy thing, and it's not easy. It's not like they show it on TV, and probably not even as easy as it's going to look in this video. But there's a lot of learning that goes on by both you and your dog. And so don't get frustrated because there's always progress to be had. Now, one of the very most important things to do, again, is not to repeat your cue. That's the first most common error I think I've seen people make with their dogs when they train them. You're such a good girl. Will you spin for me? Let me see how you do. Come here. If I use cheese, will you spin? Come here. Yes. So we want to give the cue once and only once. And if we don't get the behavior that we want, we're going to just reset. That is, maybe stand back a little bit, put your treats behind your back, wait a few seconds, and then try again. We always want to give the dog another chance too. And so we're going to also work in very, very discrete steps. You'll see these in the training plan that we're going to supply in the files section. And we always want to make sure that she, for example, passes kindergarten before she goes to first grade and so forth. That's the second most common error I think I see people make, and that is pushing too far too fast. Everybody gets frustrated then. She sure is making herself comfortable, a lot more so than she was under the trailer. But we want to make sure that the dog is always set up to succeed, and if they're succeeding at the current step, before we push to the next one. We want to make sure that the dog is getting it right at least 80% of the time for step 1 before we push to step 2, for example. The way I like to accomplish that is to work in sets of 5, and that means if I get 4 or 5 right out of 5, that'll push to the next step. If I get 4 or 5 right out of 5 on step 1, I'll push to step 2, and so forth. And just so you know, my guidelines for myself are that if I get 3 out of 5 right, I stay in the current step, and 1 or 2 out of 5 right, I drop to the previous step. This is the way that we're always going to set her up to succeed and make sure she's always giving us some kind of behavior so that she and I don't get frustrated. So we're going to start with our food lure, and step 1 is using the food lure to lure her into a quarter turn. Nina, come here, baby, good girl. So I have the cheese in my hand. Use something really yummy like cheese or chicken, okay? Because you want to make sure they're motivated. Come on, babe, over here. I'm going to set you up right here. Good girl. And I'm going to lure her. Nina, come on. Yes, good girl, into a quarter turn. That's it. Super simple. Kindergarten level, right? Yes. That's 2 for 2. Yes. 3 for 3. Yes. 4 for 4. Yes. 5 for 5. So that's 5 for 5 on step 1. So we're going to push to step 2, which is using the food lure to get her to do a half turn. Yes. 1 for 1. You missed a little piece here, honey. Right here. Good girl. Ready? I want to make sure she's set up straight for each trial. Yes. 2 for 2. Baby, good girl. Yes. 3 for 3. Yes. 4 for 4. Get over here, sweet. Good girl. Yes. 5 for 5. Okay. So she got 5 out of 5 right on step 2. So we're going to push right to step 3, which is I'm going to use the food lure to get her to turn 3/4 of the way. And I'm only working in one direction here, guys. That's really important. I'm only going to teach her to spin to the left first because that's going to make it easier for her. If I try to teach her to spin both ways at the same time, she's going to get confused. Ready? Yes, good girl. What a good girl you are. Ready? Nina? Ready? Yes, good girl. Yes, good girl. That's 3 for 3. Yes, 4 for 4. And that's 5 for 5. So we've had a really good success rate for the first 3 steps. Now we're on step 4, which is where I'm going to use the food lure to get her to turn all the way around, to spin all the way around. And I'm just feeding her the food lure each time as soon as she gets the behavior right. And I'm being really patient and really slow with my food lure to make sure I get the behavior every time. 1 for 1. Yes. 2 for 2. Yes, you got that. Okay, ready? Here you go. Yes. 3 for 3. Good girl. Yes. 4 for 4. Yes. 5 for 5. Okay, so she did step 4 and she got 100%. Now, again, training's not always this easy, everybody. It's not as easy for sure as it's going to look in this video. It's not as easy as it looks on TV when those trainers get on TV and show results in a half an hour. That's not the real world. Especially if you're new to training your dog. You need to be as patient with yourself as you are with your dog. Patience is the #1 thing because we don't want anybody not only to be frustrated, but to have not have a good time. We want this to be a great time for both you and the dog. So take it nice and slow, and if you, again, if you find that you're not getting the behavior that you want in each step, drop to the previous step. Keep it easier for both you and your dog. You will make progress. Keep your training sessions kind of short too, just a few minutes, especially if you got a little dog, because there's only only so much you can feed them. You can do this, by the way, this spin training plan with a dog of any size. And it's real fun to see little dogs, medium-sized dogs, and the big ones too, doing the final behavior. So keep the training sessions short, maybe just a few minutes in some cases. I also want to make sure I use tiny little pieces of chicken and cheese for her because she's a small dog, and I want to be able to give her as many rewards as possible. And if you keep those training sessions short, that is, you end them before the dog wants to and before you want to as well, then it's going to stay fresh, it's going to stay fun, and you and the dog are going to look forward to getting back to it instead of dreading it, which is the last thing we want. So a few minutes at a time, if you're new to training, your sessions can be very, very short. That's the way we're going to set everybody, you and your dog, up to succeed. We're on step 4 of our training plan, which is luring her all the way into complete spin with the food lure. And so next time we're going to start on step 5, which is switching to a hand signal only. So I think this is enough for you guys to get to work on. And so as I say, please, if you want to, as you go along, please feel free to post how you're doing here on Facebook. And I won't be able to reply to every single post or answer every single question, but the videos and the training plan are hopefully going to be self-explanatory, and they'll help guide you through. And remember these rules too, everybody, super, super important. Never repeat your cue, and always take it super slow and set the dog up to succeed, because those are the 2 most important things you want to remember in having success in training. So Nina, again, is making herself at home, and this is the way she's going to be for the rest of her life. She's going to feel happy and safe, and you're going to be super spoiled, because that's what you deserve. Yes, you do. You're such a cute little baby. Yes, you are. Okay, everybody, so looking forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.